Oh,
Can't believe this is happening.
yeah! Welcome back to another episode of Staff Inspection. But today we have this. So Amy and I picked up this big body LS430. And we're gonna be doing an air ride install. The plan for this build is gonna be really simple. We're gonna do air ride, we're gonna do really sick JDM wheels, we're gonna do an exhaust, and we're gonna do a little bit of exterior mods. But for this episode, we're gonna focus on getting the air ride system installed and getting this car slammed. All right, so there's a ton of stuff going on at the shop, and they're shooting over there, so we couldn't work on the car. A couple weeks ago, we actually got started on this and just mounted up the tank. Wanted to kind of cross one of those bridges before we even had to get started on this. Got the tank mounted in there, super clean. This thing is really rad. I want to pull this out and show this to you. You just twist the tank like that, and then it comes right out. This is really rad because the mounts right here, you bolt them in. We have them bolted to a plate through the floor of the car. And then right there, you have quick release latches. So effectively you put that in, you rotate the tank counterclockwise and it locks right into there, and then you have set screws. That stuff's really important. So I'm gonna pull this tank out so I could show you a little bit more of how all this stuff works. Accuair completely stepped their game up and everything is inside of the tank. So you could see here, you have a plug for power, and then you have all of your PTC connections for your airlines, mufflers, and then you have all your other connections here. Also, you have in and out, your mufflers, you could check your flow controls. The cool part is the compressor, all the valves, manifolds and stuff are actually inside of the tank. So if you were to unbolt all of this, you could take this off and service those if you ever have an issue. They also go as far to give you a template for it, so it's like super dummy proof. We have all their E-level stuff. So I was going to cheap out and get the pressure-based system, but Reno over there actually convinced me otherwise. Here's a really fun fact. So the pressure system actually works the opposite way you want it to work, because if your ride height is say 30 PSI and then you put 4 people in it, your car is going to see more pressure in the rear bags, and it's actually going to lower the pressure to adjust to that ride height and then lower it even more. So it's going to be doing the opposite of what you want to do. Of course, you can go in and manually adjust the height, but that's kind of a pain in the ass, and when you're spending the money, you might as well get the right system, so where it's kind of like hands-free and feels almost like a factory car. We have all their E-level system, all the plugs, and then these are the ride height sensors. We'll get to that later. It comes with all of the wiring diagrams and stuff. It shouldn't be too difficult to put in. I do hate wiring, so not looking forward to it. Also, I feel like having to pull out the interior of this car is going to be a complete nightmare, so we'll see. All right, so now that we got the tank mounted, the first thing that we're going to do is get power from the battery in the front of the car to the trunk. Luckily, Accuair setup comes with a nice battery cable too. So it's got a terminal on the front that we can run from the battery to the back with an inline fuse block, and then the plug that goes into the tank. So gonna pull the battery out, figure out a way to run it down the passenger side and then back up into the trunk. So I pulled the battery and the battery box out, and looking for a way to get the power wire down. Since there's no holes through the body of the car, I think what we're gonna do is actually, if you could see down there, we're going to just follow the brake lines down, because I'm sure Toyota was smart enough to route the brake lines in a safe location, so I'm sure it'll be good for our power line. And I think while we're at it, I might actually throw the air line down there, or at least just trace where it's going. I think the whole bottom of the car is like plastic underpaddled. We're gonna follow the brake lines down to the back and figure out where we can break off, and then go and drill through the trunk back here. All right, let's get to it. Had a little bit of a setback. So the cable from Accuair is just a tad short, and the routing through the car, I don't know, it probably wasn't gonna make it there. And then this inline fuse would actually just be like under the carpet somewhere, because I decided not to run it under the car and to put it in through the car. So I found a nice grommet right here with a provision for putting an extra wire in it, or at least it looks like it. So I actually just snipped the end off of that. See, and there's a nice little like spot you could put a wire through. We're gonna fish that down through the kick panels, pull the rear seat out, and hopefully there's a pass-through or something to get somewhere. I'm gonna take off a bunch of carpet and stuff and see if we can find a pass-through. Worst comes to worst, I think we'll find a nice safe place and drill a hole and put a grommet in there, and that's where we'll run our line through.
Welcome back to the Hoonigan Shopping Network, folks. We're not really sorry for interrupting this broadcast because we got to keep the lights on somehow. Today, we've got something really impressive for you. New. What do you call these? Hoonigan all black on black button-ups. Available in short and long sleeve. These shirts are a great look if you fancy yourself the Dominic Toretto type. You happen to be out of work? Perfect. Wear it to a job interview. You happen to live in your mom's basement? Great. Impress her by dressing up for once. You can throw this on in any kind of event. I mean, let's just say you're heading over to a random funeral to try to pick up some goth girls. Black on black really sets the mood anywhere you're going. Head on over to Hoonigan.com. The short sleeve version is going to run you $49.95, with the long sleeve coming in at a very reasonable $54.95. This fall, clean up your act with Hoonigan.
All right, so I got the wire ran, and pretty much it was just the reverse of running the power wire. So I didn't actually film it, but it comes around down there, across here. So this is the battery cable, so it's just gonna run there. And then it's gonna tuck up under the dash. And then I decided that we're just gonna get like a cell phone mount to mount it right there. So super easy, you don't have to like hack apart the center console. I got a good laugh out of this, but I went on Amazon just to see if we could order one right now and maybe get it like today or tomorrow. And I typed in LS430 phone mount, and I think this is exactly what we want. That's so solid that that is literally the first thing that came up. Tight. So yeah, gonna mount it there and put the interior back together for the most part and move on to mounting all of the management in the trunk. And then we can finally get on to, once that powers up and we hear the compressor kick on, we'll pressurize the tank and then start running airlines and doing the struts and the ride height sensors. All right, I actually lied. I decided I'd mount this thing, and it literally fits perfect in the ashtray spot. Like, it looks like it's made to be there. And the nice part is the controller, you can plug it in the back or down here. So you can still use it handheld and pull it out, but it does tuck in there really nice and simple. And then you could, it's a little clumsy with one hand, but so you could still tuck the wire in, push that down and close it away nice. So very factory look. So the next thing we got to do is just figure out where to mount up all of the management, all the wiring and stuff. I kind of want to put it in the trunk, but the Accuair manual actually says you can mount it under the car, which may be easier because you do have to run sensors to all of the struts. And there's also a antenna device that you can wire up so that you could use your phone to Bluetooth control your management. And that says it has to be outside. So we're just trying to figure out now like what the easiest route is, considering there's a lot of plugs you have to pass through, and I don't really want to drill like a 12-inch hole in the body to pass through all the plugs. So with that being said, I'm gonna jack this thing up, take a look under the car, really try to figure out where all this stuff would fit best. I mounted up the ECU here. It's got all the plugs, all the sensors. So we're running from the box to the adapter harness that will allow us to run a Bluetooth module, and then all of the sensor wires for the ride height sensors come out through a grommet through there, tucked away really nice. Currently they're just sitting on the floor. We'll have to run those. I mounted the Bluetooth module back there. It's not mounted yet, but that's where it's gonna live, so it's outside of the car. If it doesn't need to be outside of the car, comment below, let me know, because I'm just trying to follow the directions that I think I know. Ran the rest of the wires, so pretty much, there's a bunch more actually that had to go forward. So we got a bunch of wires going forward, tucked under here, just all the way up, and then into the engine bay through the factory grommet. And now we have to tap into the fuse box for 12 volt on, so ignition on, headlights on, which I don't even know why we need that one. Not quite sure yet, but maybe for like the light on the gauge or something, I don't know. That's it. So the goal for tonight is just get this thing fired up and kind of like tidy that up, and then tomorrow pressure test the system, start doing the suspension. And day two. Last night, camera died. I just wanted to jam on, so didn't really film anything, but not super interesting. I was just running wires and tidying everything up. This is the moment that I'm always scared about because, I don't know, I suck at wiring. See, wired up to key on. Got power to the remote. So that's good. Ooh, it's on. Wow, it's so quiet. Holy crap. That's awesome. You barely even hear this thing run. Back in the day, I remember like the Viair compressors, you'd run like dual compressors and it sounded like you had a friggin' ice cream truck in the back. You could hear the valves working. This works. Gonna download the app for the gauges so we could make sure this thing pressurizes, even though I don't have all the plugs in the tank and stuff yet. So that's good, because the wiring was the part I hate doing the most, even though Accuair made it pretty much as simple as possible. Like everything is plug and play and the wiring diagrams are really simple. We got the struts out and like you could just tell this isn't compressed or extended, but like they're mid-height. Like look at the difference in size on these things. So this is basically a threaded body. So you could adjust the length of the shock and then also the height of the bag and then just simple fittings. But it comes with top hats, looks really good. So this will be nice for a quick bolt-in installation. Honestly, looks really simple. Getting the suspension on and off is really easy. So gonna toss these in, run the air lines to it, then we'll make our way towards running lines to the front. You wanna make sure that, especially with a car that you're trying to get really low, that you don't put your air line anywhere where it could like get pinched or compromised because of moving suspension parts when they're fully aired out, getting pinched between the frame or, you know, axle to subframe or anything like that. Also, you have an exhaust to worry about that can melt the line and ruin your day. Just want to be kind of smart with where we're picking where to run our lines. I always try to go with similar to the brake line. If you can't mimic the brake line, try to stay along static parts. Such as like a subframe and stuff like that, and then jump across. So, all right, I need an Ace Hardware sponsorship. This is like the 15th trip there, this project. So you should probably open your parts and look at them before you start your project, because I could have saved myself a lot of time and money by figuring out that I should have bought leader lines. But these struts didn't come with a leader line, which would be a braided hose that goes from the strut, mounting down to the body and then adapting to PTC from there. So it came with this like 1/8 inch weird fitting that has some sort of like compression adapter type thing, and not running that. So we have to go from 1/8 inch NPT to 1/4 inch male NPT. So my only solution was to go to Ace Hardware, get a shoulder 1/8 inch NPT, male to male, and then 1/8 inch female to 1/4 inch female, and then that will adapt to our PTC fittings. Honestly, it's just a temporary solution. I really don't like having PTC run all the way up to the strut. We'll use it today to get the car done, and then I'll order up some leader lines, and then we'll just replace those at a later date. All right, so we got the strut in the car, just kind of pops right in. It looks like, could be wrong, the only way to adjust the height on this is to actually unbolt the strut, pull it out, and then thread the body in and out, which seems really annoying, but it looks like the bag is fixed. I think we're gonna have a bunch of taking the rear suspension on and off just to figure out a ride height, so that'll be fun. Next thing to do is just to run the air lines. So what we're gonna do is start, I don't know, I think I'll start in the trunk, push it out, and then kind of route along where I think is safe for it to go. So this is the spare tire well. We're gonna come out there, and then we're gonna drag the line all the way over and get it somewhere up there. Before doing the ride height sensors, I figured we should figure out our ride height, both max and high and low, because this currently is almost, I don't know the pressure yet, but this is like aired up. And we'll do a little shot of it coming down. Pretty low, and we're putting 20s on this, so I don't even think that we will need to get it that low. So if that's the case, I'd way rather have a little bit more ride height than just being able to go lower for the sake of going lower. Yeah, a little bit more ride height would be good, but goddamn, that is f***ing slammed. Got the front suspension on, struts in there. Fitting's really ugly, don't judge me. But it actually works out pretty well because that points right back and we could catch the airline there. Gonna run the air lines from the front, forward, and then do the same as we did in the rear. Figure out the ride height, which means the worst part, get the car off the jack stands, get it on the floor. And then from there, we'll start tackling the ride height sensors, which I haven't really figured out yet, so that's gonna be a good time. So for now, burned. God, run airlines. lines ran, got the suspension in, and we aired this thing out, and look how fucking sick it looks. Oh man, looks so dumped. All right, because I don't think that I have enough energy to actually do all the ride height sensors tonight, I just kind of buttoned up the trunk. Amy tied up the wiring, and we put the carpet all back in. So, I mean, you could see a little bit of the wiring back there if you want to really dig deep, but super clean, just kind of like a low-key setup. Still has the factory trunk mat, super functional because under here, still have the spare tire, jack, toolkit will go over there, jumper cables. Still got all the accessories for daily driving while looking pretty clean. We could throw a little carpet piece over the back there too if we want to cover that up. I guess now that we don't have to take the struts back out too, put the interior back together, considering this is gutted like their freaking race car. So you could pop all this stuff back together, and yeah, that's it. Whew. All right, so now it's for the final payoff. Another cool thing we got with the Accuair setup was the Wi-Fi eye level. So it's basically an app on your phone, which is sick because you could do things like this now, which is, oh, that's sick. And wait, ready? Ride height setting 1, ride height setting 2, gotta go over a big bump, ride height setting 3. Let's get that going down one more time. Hold it for 3 seconds. So cool. Oh yeah, we got wheels. These are 20-inch Weds Kranze Brazzeria, and they're built by Three Piece U.S. They're full polished, 20 by 9.5, 20 by 10.5, wrapped in Falken tires. The front, 9.5 plus 25, and it fits in really good. I think we could use a little spacer, but the front just has a minor fender roll. The rear was a complete fiasco to get to fit. Here's a couple pictures of what it fit like before. And then I cut it with a grinder outside of the donut garage. Oh. And then I feathered it down, flapper wheeled it down, and got it to fit like this. And then Mitch actually gave me a tip that I'd never seen before, which is to use magazines to pull a fender. It came out better than any fender roll job I've ever done. Look at this. Look at the fitment on this wheel. It's literally right on there. So what I did was I cut the fender and then I grinded it down, and then you actually take magazines and you put one here and one here, and you lower the car down and then you sit on it. And then you put 2, and then you put 3 and 4. And we got up to 5, and it actually pulled the fender the perfect amount. Here's a photo of what it looked like. I think I actually have to go back in and maybe do 6 magazines because it's such a tight fitment that the fender actually scratches the wheel when I raise and lower it, which is kind of stupid. I am freaking stoked, man. This thing looks sick. It rides so good. Even did some muffler deletes, and it's really quiet but sounds great, and it's awesome. Oh, real quickly, another note. When you're setting up your airlines, one thing you definitely want to do is run a stainless steel leader line, which is the line that comes off the bag and then goes down to the bottom over here. So you get a lot of debris, you get a lot of movement in the shock, so you don't want it just rubbing on anything. And then basically just tie it up to a point down here so it keeps the line nice and tight to the car, prevents it from rubbing through anything, and that's all. When you run a pressure base setup and you set your car to, let's say, 30 PSI cruising, 30 PSI ride height, you are presetting your height based off pressure. So you put stuff in your trunk, you put more people in the car, the pressure is actually gonna go up in the bags, and then it'll compensate by lowering the pressure, thus lowering the car even more. So like, if you have really tight wheel to tire clearance or rim to fender clearance, you run the risk of completely ruining your wheel or tire or arch or paint or whatever. So for me, I was like, that's enough to be like, I kind of want this to be brainless. I want to install it, make it work once, and then not have to worry about it anymore. So we use the E-level system, and it was a little bit difficult to get working, but it's totally worth it. Let me show you what I did. There's a lot of trial here, just so you can kind of understand what it is that you have to do to get this thing working. Is basically they come with these sensors, and this is a ride height sensor with an arm here that you attach to a suspension point. So they provide a photo of what's really cute, because you're never gonna find a point on your car that is that simple. This was really difficult to figure out until I used what was in plain sight, which is right here. If your frame rail and you have a suspension arm here that functions on a straight axis, this will be super simple to figure out. A lot of times you have cast arms that have a lot of different radiuses, and they actually cycle through the suspension travel quite differently. So you run the possibility of binding the standoff, this part right here. You run the risk of this binding and then snapping. So what you want to do while you're setting these up is you actually want to have both sides of the car up so your sway bar doesn't limit the travel, and you want to jack it up through the cycle of the suspension. So full droop to fully compressed, and make sure that everywhere through that cycle the rod has play in it, because this way it won't bind and it's able to operate on that stroke. So what I wound up doing is I avoided the factory headlight leveling system, which is something that this car is equipped with from the factory, and that actually had the exact same setup from Lexus, but I thought it was in the way and I kept trying to build around that. But then the answer was actually to use that as a guide. So check this out real quick. So what I ended up doing is, you could see the factory headlight level sensor here ties into the control arm, right? And it has the same exact style stanchion and then a sensor here with an arm. So you could see that it's exactly the same setup. So what I did is I built a little 90-degree bracket, which at home fab work, no welder, no brake, no real tools. So I took a piece of steel, bent it at a 90-degree angle, drilled holes in it, used self-tappers into the frame, and tied that in real nice. So that's there, the arm stands off, and then even at full droop, we have a lot of play there. And then I actually just attached it to that, just using a little standoff, which is a flat piece of aluminum with a hole drilled in it. So the whole time I kept trying to build a mount that came off of the control arm here and mounted down to the arm somewhere, and then I had it mounted more far forward. Oh no, I had it mounted back here and attaching to the subframe down there. And what happened was, when I turned the car full lock, it grabbed the sensor and broke it. So there's a lot of trial and error here. So what you really want to do is take into consideration, what you offered from the factory. If you're using a car like this and it has factory mounting points, then use that, because it's the most simple way to do it. If there isn't something like this, you just want to figure out where you can put the mount, where you want to put the sensor, where it's out of the way of debris, wheels while turning, suspension components while cycling, because like your sway bar moves when your suspension moves, that may hit, tie rods, really anything. So you want to be able to cycle the suspension multiple times and really make sure that where you place your sensor and the rod are out of harm's way. Once you get that going, please stick a jack under it, let all of the air out of the bag, and then jack the suspension up and make sure that there is no binding on that piece or that hits anything. Let the air out of the front left bag that we're working on right here. And then what you want to do basically is just jack this up slowly, and every couple of inches just reach in here and give this a wobble. So you can see that's loose. The heim joints still move. And you just jack this up. And see, what I was saying here is, like, right now, like, this is super close. And you want to make sure that you're not going to like rub through the wire or this is going to grab or anything. But I zip tied this up to the side right here so that this is out of the way, but it is very close. So let's be honest, that's not something you would think about, that the shock body collar may come in contact with the sensor. So you want to just cycle this through, see what ends up getting closer, see what other parts move in the direction that you think they will. So like go up a couple more inches, grab this, make sure it's still loose, and just keep cycling this up until it bottoms out. That's it. That's really all you're gonna go for there. The easier way to do it on the way down as well is just take a look and let the jack handle come down. oh shit, and see how that all cycles through. That's basically it. Once you get that, you're good to go. Rinse and repeat for the other side, but obviously you still want to keep cycling the suspension back and forth and making sure that you're not getting snagged on anything. So the rear is exactly the same. Had headlight leveling sensors because it runs a front and a back to obviously adjust the angle of the headlight. And I pretty much just did the same thing, came off the frame, put a 90 down to the tab and put a little step off. It's the exact same setup. That's it for this car. This was just a quick, pretty much weekend build. Nothing too crazy, but had a lot of fun putting this together and just wanted to film it because we haven't done anything with Air Ride on Hoonigan before. I'm stoked. This is probably the best daily ever. So hope you enjoyed it. That's a wrap. Pumped! All right, whatever.